The weird thing about the hiring manager round is that no two are ever the same. I have had interviews where we just talked about design projects, and I have also had those interviews where we just didn't talk about design at all. Instead, we talked about leadership, stakeholder management, failures, design decisions, and also very personal life questions. And I think that's what makes this round very tricky, that you just never know what is coming your way. And what doesn't help is just memorizing each and every question like it's a test. Instead, what helps is just having a framework. Now, in this video, I break down the entire framework along with some really good examples. So let's dive in. All right, so we will cover these four things in this video. The first is we will understand what is the purpose of this call. Second, we will understand what are they exactly scanning in a candidate. Third one is how to answer every question. The last one is just taking a look at some real example. So starting with the segment one, which is what is the purpose of this call, right? And the very easy answer to that question is that I just want to imagine that if I can work with you and enjoy doing that as well. So what is happening that let's suppose you are an applicant who is applying, then they will filter you, then you will be heading out to the hiring manager round. Now, one thing that you have to remember here is that this is exactly the person who will be going to hire you. So you have to impress this person at all cost. And some of the bad thing that you can do here is just show a lot of ego, show that you are not a cultural fit, and then you have no confidence, right? And some of the good thing that you should do is definitely talk about what you have done. And then you also have to demonstrate that you are a good team fit. And then last and not the least, you have to understand that you are talking to a human. So that's the segment one. The second segment is what are the managers actually scanning? So in this round, they are actually scanning a lot of things. But in my experience, these are the four things that they primarily look for. The first one is the skill or the level. So can you do the job? Have you taken some ownership or have you influenced in a meaningful way within a larger organization or a smaller organization? Then second thing is, are you a good collaborator? Because in our day-to-day work, we collaborate with engineers, stakeholders, engineering managers, or developers. So that is a key value position to bring. So are you doing all of it? And then also, how susceptible you are to the feedback or any conflicts within the team? The third one is the culture, like what culture are you coming in from? Are you from a product company? Are you in the same domain? And what company size that you have worked into? And the last one is motivation. Now, like, what is your motivation to join our company? Is it growth? Is it learning? Is it raising a bar? It can be all three of them, but definitely they check out this. Now, these two are very important in my experience. One is the skill or the level, which means that basically, have you been there? Have you done the job? The next one is motivation. Can you do the things on your own? So keep that in mind when you are trying to prepare for this. The last segment is how to answer any question. So again, we don't have to memorize each and everything. Instead, what we have to do is use a STAR framework. STAR is basically situation, task. This is wrong here. This should be action. Let me do that. Yeah, situation, task, action, and results. Now, the possible question can be endless, but these are some of the very basic questions, which is tell me about yourself, walk me through a project, what were the biggest challenges, what were the strengths, weaknesses, what was the conflict with the PM, then why are you leaving, what is your leadership style, give me some example of it, and feedback that you have received and how you acted on it. Now, what you have to remember is I have broken down all the question into four main category. One is project, second one is behavioral, third one is leadership, the last one is motivation. Now, in the project category, you will be asked like, tell me a time or why did you do this? What was the reason and how did you do this? Now, what you have to do here is use this framework. First, start with the context, then what decision you took and what was the outcome. Now, the evaluation criteria here is the design thinking. Now, in the behavioral round, they will probably check like, tell me a time when you had a conflict or tell me a time when you had a failure or things didn't go well and how did you bounce back on it. So again, you have to follow the same structure. Start with some context, tell them what decision that you make, what was the outcome, and how the outcome sort of changed your thinking and what did you learn from it. Now, the evaluation criteria here is just maturity. Like, are you mature enough to understand that you have made a mistake and then willing to work on it and improve it? The third one is leadership. Now, depending on your role and what company are you looking into, leadership may or may not apply, but generally everyone looks for if you had any chance to influence or take ownership. And again, follow the same format, context, decision, outcome. And the last one is instead of learning from the previous round, you have to just add in influence. And the evaluating criteria here will be seniority, like how senior you are and how much can you influence. The last one is the motivation. So the question will be, why are you leaving? Why us? What is next in your career? And what you have to answer it in this format is what is current, what is future, and what are the growth areas. And the evaluation criteria is intent. I think most of the time what I see is if your intent is strong, they would take a chance on you and then proceed you to the next steps. So that was the third segment, and the fourth and the final segment is having some real life examples. So these are the four examples that I've prepared. We won't walk through all of them, but feel free to take a screenshot of it. So in the project category, let's suppose somebody asks, tell me a time when you worked on a project and it went successfully. So what you have to do is basically start with the situation, which is at FlowPay, we noticed that nearly half of the merchant were dropping, and then so there were some issues with the onboarding. Now, what was the task that you did? So as the designer on the team, I was responsible for understanding the friction and improving the activation. And what action did you take for it? So I analyzed the user recording. I spoke to some customers, did some research, and then I figured out that now we are using 8 steps. And then what if we reduce that to 4 steps? And then what would that look like? And then I spoke with the product team as well as the engineering team. And we ended up implementing that. And the last one is because we have implemented this new flow, the new experiment increased the onboarding completion by 22%. And then it shows that you have owned the result. Even if it's in a negative direction, you can absolutely mention that and just say that this was the learning and we took that learning and then started working on it again. This could be a lot of things to remember. So what I have done is created a 3-point summary for this. And one thing that I've realized is when I start writing this with my hand, I tend to remember it much better. So what I would do is I would check the question either through ChatGPT, Google Gemini, and then for each and every question, I'll prepare a 3-point summary. So this is how it looks like. First is, let's suppose somebody asks you this question, tell me a time when you worked on a project. Then you will say first drop off in onboarding. So that is your first clue. Second is you research and redesign the flow. And the third one is you increased the onboarding by 22%. So this is a very quick thing, and immediately this will trigger your head and then you can just start talking about it right away. So that's the first type of example. The second example is some motivation. So what is your motivation to join our company? So you can always mention that currently I'm working in a very small company. The task is that over time I want to a larger scale organization where I can do multiple things. And then the action part you can say is I'm looking to join a company where I can have just a bigger base to experiment with. So that's your action part. And then you can also mention that I'm only looking for those companies which have a larger scale or have a larger audience base or a specific domain or XYZ. Whatever your reason is, you can mention that because that is usually a good thing. And the last one is you can say that my hope is that by joining your company, I'll be able to make such and such impact. And then how would you remember all of this is just having a 3-point summary. First one is I want to expose myself to large scale work. Second, I want to explore opportunity. The third one is what is the impact that I can bring. So that wraps up our some real life example. Now, the final takeaway here is that you do not absolutely have to remember 50 answers. You just need to have 5 good stories, and that will last you through your entire interview. So in the last video, we discussed that your job in each and every round is to get to the next round. So you started here, then you had this, then now you're here, and then hopefully hiring manager will go ahead and then you will be taken to the portfolio round. 4 things that you have to remember. 1, you have to remember that hiring manager is evaluating, can I work with this person and enjoy that? Second, have you done that job? Third, are you using some sort of framework? The last thing is the story is making sense. And then what you have to do on your end is use the same story, just take a different angle. So again, on only 5 stories, make sure that you are well-rounded with this. Use a STAR framework and give your best in the hiring manager round. So that's it from my side. See you in the next one. Thanks.